Welcome to the 2020 New Testament Challenge. Today we're in Romans chapter 11. A long time ago, I heard a story of three brothers that left home. They became very successful. Now, these three brothers were always very competitive with each other. They always tried to outdo one another. They were envious of each other. Well, when their mother became very old, they all sent her a gift and they tried to impress one another with what they gave her. They got together and they shared their gifts. One brother said, I built our mother a brand new house. It was a mansion. It has 7 bedrooms in it. Well, the second brother said, I gave our mother a brand new Mercedes. This vehicle has all the bells and whistles. I did not spare any expense. It's the best vehicle you can buy. The third brother said, well, I gave our mother a parrot. They started to laugh and he said, no. This parrot is special. This parrot spent 15 years under the tutelage of 20 different biblical scholars. It can recite the Bible from Genesis all the way through Revelation. You know how her mother loved to read the Bible? Now she can't. Well, this parrot can recite the entire Bible for her. A little while later, their mother sent each one of the brothers a letter. They got together to read the letter. And this is what the letter said. To my one son, thank you so much for the house. Unfortunately, I only stay in one room. I'm not able to get around. To my other son, thank you for that car. But unfortunately, I'm not able to go anywhere, so it just stays in the garage. But to my third son, thank you for that chicken. It was delicious. Well, those brothers tried to outdo one another. And Paul is talking about that here in chapter 11. He's telling the Jews not to be envious. He's telling the Gentiles not to boast. Why? Because here in chapter 11, Paul is talking about the faithfulness of God. And he's saying that God has worked in each of their lives to do his will. He's telling them in verse 11, salvation has come to the Gentiles to make Israel envious. The Jews were to be envious of the Gentiles. Why? To wake them up. But then he says in verse 14, and in hope that I somehow may arouse my people to envy and to save some of them. Paul is wanting to talk about the Gentiles with the Jews so that they might wake up that God is at work and they don't want to miss out. Well, as we go on, then he says in verse 20, do not be arrogant. As he's talking to the Gentiles, don't be arrogant that God has brought you in, that he's grafted you into the family, because God's not done with Israel yet. That's what he says here, beginning in verse 25. Do not be arrogant of this mystery, brothers, that you may become conceited. Israel has experienced a hardening in part until the full number of the Gentiles has come in. Paul is telling them, don't be arrogant, don't be boastful, don't think as though you are better than the Israelites, because God has called you to be part of his family, but he's not done working in Israel yet. So, therefore, God is sovereign, God is just, and God will be faithful to Israel. Then, in verse 30 and 31, this is what Paul says. So, about Israel, they too have now become disobedient in order that they too may now receive mercy as a result of God's mercy to you. For God has bound all men over to disobedience so that he may have mercy on them all. We have received mercy. We have received grace. We need to be thankful for God's grace, never arrogant, never boastful, because God has done a work in us. Where would we be without the grace of God? We would be lost. But thanks be to God, through Jesus our Lord, we have been saved. But God is not done. He is still saving all of those who will call upon him, Jew and Gentile alike. That's the message of Romans chapter 11. So again, as we look at chapters 9, 10, 11, God is sovereign, God is just, and God is faithful. I am so thankful for God's faithfulness. How about you? Thank you for joining the 2020 New Testament Challenge.